So you really don't want to hold option positions all the way to expiration. You need to be getting out of your option positions well before expiration. It's just, it eliminates a lot of risk. It eliminates a lot of exercise and assignment risk. It eliminates a lot of delta risk and gamma risk. You're not going to see those huge P&L swings, that happen very late in the option cycle. You kind of take a lot of risk off the table and you kind of smooth things out as far as P&L, right? When I get out of an options position early, I know exactly where I stand. When I decide, for example, to take my option positions off at 21 DTE, well, at 21 DTE, I can say, hey, I'm either up on the position a little bit, I'll go ahead and take it off for a profit, or I'm down on the position a little bit, I'll go ahead and take it off for hopefully a small loss. But yeah, I know exactly where I stand. If I hold an options position all the way to expiration, especially if that options position ends up hovering around at the money at expiration, you have absolutely no idea whether that trade's going to be the max loss, the max winner, somewhere in between, because just the slightest fluctuations of price are going to really drastically affect your P&L on that trade. Now let me give you a real world example of why you don't want to hold these option positions all the way to expiration. Especially today, I want to talk about what happens with spreads and iron condors. You really don't want to hold these things to expiration. Get out of them well before expiration. We had a Discord member. So over on the DT options Discord, we had a member that had a call credit spread in Meta. He had a $5 wide call credit spread that was expiring on Friday. So he was holding it the day of expiration, which he should have been out of this thing well before then, again, just to eliminate a lot of that headache with, exercise risk and all of that. But he was like, well, what's going to happen? Because Meta at the time was trading right around $560. And he was hoping that it would go down. Of course, if it goes down below 555, he's a full winner on this. Let me go to the TASTYTRADE platform. I can actually put this a similar trade on. Let me go. I don't know what kind of DTE he was in, but I'm just going to go to the 55-day cycle and I'll put on a standard call credit spread. I'll sell the 35 deltas, kind of what I do on a lot of my credit spreads. I'll do a $5 wide spread. I'm going to receive a $1.60 credit on a max loss of 340. That's my standard call credit spread. Again, I'm not exactly sure what he was using as far as deltas and DTE, but a standard call credit spread. If the stock finishes below 605 at expiration, I get the max win. If it finishes above 610 at expiration, I get the max loss. And if it finishes somewhere in between, well, things are really uncertain, right? Especially on the day of expiration. And that's exactly what happened to him. Meta was trading right around his long call. I mean, it was just kept hovering right around that long call strike. And you can see if it finished the day above that long call strike, he's going to take the max loss. And that's exactly what ended up happening. But he was holding out hope that, hey, if it just goes below 610, he'll suffer not the max loss, maybe a smaller loss, or even get to the break-even point, in between the two strikes, or maybe even get to a win. If it falls enough, he may win a little bit or even get to the max win. There's so much uncertainty at that point on the day of, the day of expiration, and it's hovering right here around at the money. Now, he was asking me about possibly rolling the trade. He wanted to roll the trade out because he knew this was risky. He's either going to take probably the max loss or maybe the max winner, but who knows? We didn't know where it was going to end up. And he's like, well, could I just roll? And he was actually a little bit underwater on the trade. He was already suffering a pretty big unrealized loss where Meta was trading that day, and with such little time left, rolling, he was going to take a big hit rolling. And if you had to pay too much to roll, you're actually going to eliminate any possible profit on the trade anyway. So I was like, you know what? It's a defined risk trade. When you put on credit spreads and iron condors, any kind of defined risk spread trade, you've already kind of set your max possible loss anyway. You kind of have a built-in stop loss, which is the max loss. Hopefully you were responsible when you put on the trade, and if you were okay with that possible max loss, just take the max loss. Sometimes you just have to take the L on a trade. You're not going to win on every trade. You're not even going to come close to winning on 100% of your trades. Sometimes you just have a losing trade, and just make sure that you're okay taking that loss. And that's kind of what I suggested to him. I was like, well, it's already too late in the option cycle. You're already kind of hovering around your long call strike. Just sit tight. Maybe it comes back down and you finish maybe break even or even a winner. That would be great. Or maybe you take the max loss. But again, if you were comfortable when you open the trade with possibly taking the max loss, just take the max loss. But where things got a little tricky here is that he had 9 spreads on, and there was a possibility that Meta was going to finish the day in between the short call and the long call. If I go back, take a look at his strikes, it was 555, 560. And Meta was trading right around 560, and sometimes it was fluctuating above and below the long call. Now, what happens if at expiration, and let me zoom in a little bit, what happens if Meta finishes in between the strikes? Well, if you finish in between the strikes, your short call finishes in the money. You're going to get assigned 100 shares per contract on your short call. Now, your long call is actually going to finish out of the money. It just expires worthless. You take the full loss on the long call, and on the short call, you get assigned the short shares of stock. So, for most brokers, what they're going to do is they're going to assign you short shares of stock. Some brokers may close the trade early for you. In fact, many brokers will, especially if they see that your account, you don't have enough money to actually purchase those shares of stock. What they're going to do is they're going to shut down your trade early for you. They're going to ask you, hey, monitor your trade, make sure you're monitoring your position, and please get out of it before expiration. And if you don't get out of it before expiration, they're going to get you out of it probably, like a half hour early. I know with TASTYTRADE, a lot of times if I'm in a position kind of late into the options cycle, like the day of, sometimes I'll get a little reminder, hey, you have an options position on that's expiring today. Are you monitoring this? And if you are, please let us know that you are. And of course, I'll let them know, yeah, I'm aware that I've got that position on. I make sure to tell them, hey, I'm going to be out of it. I'm monitoring it. Don't close it for me. But if I wasn't monitoring it, they're going to close the position for me, again, if they deem it a very risky position. So what made this Discord member's position kind of risky is that he had 9 of these call credit spreads on, and if it finished between the 2 strikes and he got assigned on a short call, he was going to have to purchase 900 short shares of Meta. Meta was currently trading around $560, but he's going to get assigned at the 555 strike. So he's going to have to purchase 900 shares at $555. Now let's go ahead and pull out the calculator. So 555, and he's going to have to buy 900 shares. He's going to have to spend almost exactly $500,000 to short those 900 shares of Meta. Now, in this particular case, this member said he was fine taking assignment of the shares, so he had the $500,000 in his account. He wasn't worried, like he could purchase that. But he was wondering if the broker was going to assign him or maybe settle the whole thing for cash. Now, his broker, you can see from the screenshot, is Robinhood. And I was letting him know I don't trade with Robinhood. I don't know how they handle this stuff. I told him maybe they will settle it for cash for him, or maybe he'll get assigned the shares. I didn't know. I said, if you can't afford the shares, though, you need to get out of it early. He said he would be fine if they put him the shares, but if they settled it early, which is exactly what they did. They ended up closing him out of his position 30 minutes before close, because even though I guess he could take assignment of the shares, they didn't want him, I guess, to take $500,000 worth of Meta. So they went ahead and closed his spread early. He took the total loss of $4,500, and you can see lesson learned. And what he's talking about lesson learned, of course, he learned how Robinhood handles this kind of situation. But I think he also learned, don't hold these things to expiration, right? There's just no reason to. And let me show you how holding a spread to expiration versus getting out early, how they differ. So if I go back to my example call credit spread, my kind of standard 60 DTE call credit spread that I put on around a 35 delta, this is kind of my go-to credit spread. Now let's imagine that I'm going to hold this thing to expiration. So let me go into the sidebar analysis here. Now, this orange line, that's the T0 line. That is the theoretical value of this spread if Meta is currently trading around 561. Let's imagine that Meta came up to around $607.50. You could see I would theoretically be losing on this trade about $93. And that's if Meta made that move tomorrow. Meta keeps going up. You can see I lose money. You know, I'm down $109, $112, but it's a slow move down, right? I'm nowhere near taking the max loss on the theoretical line because not enough time has passed. If Meta, for example, made a big move, say Meta jumped up to $625 tomorrow, you know, this call credit spread is way underwater, but still, theoretically, I'm only down about $130 on the position. I'm nowhere near my max loss of 340. Why is that? It's because I'm still going to have about 54 days left to expiration for this thing to reverse course and come back to me. So time is a big factor on these. But watch what happens if I go out in time. Let's go to the analysis, and I'm just going to go ahead and bump up time. Let's just keep bumping up time. Let's go all the way to 21 DTE. Now this is typically where I manage my trades, 21 DTE. I'll put them on at 60. I'll take them off at 21. Let's imagine Meta makes a big move against me all the way up to $625. I'm still not taking the max loss of 340, even with 21 days. You know, nearly 40 days have passed in the trade. Only 21 is left, but still, I'm nowhere near a max loss. My theoretical loss on this trade is now $150 with 21 days to go. So if I chose to get out of the trade at 21 days, I'm not taking the max loss. I'm not even taking half of the max loss, right? This is why we get out of our trades early. I'm not going to take a max loss as long as I get out of the trade early. But watch what happens if I go ahead and adjust the date. And let me go into the calendar. It expires on November 15th. Let's go all the way to 0 DTE. Now look at the theoretical line. Now I start losing huge as this goes above the 610 call, right? Already, even at 615, which is only $5 above that call, I'm already experiencing a loss of nearly $280. That's not very far away from the max loss of $340, right? So at that point, you're just screwed. You kind of screwed yourself holding too long. And if you go way up, like 625, like I was talking about earlier, that's essentially the max loss at that point, right? And this is why you get out of your trades early. If you get out of your trades early, you're never going to take the max loss. Now, I know some people are going to come back and say, well, if you get out of your trades early, you're also never going to take the max win either, right? Because, you know, if you get out early, you're not going to realize the maximum possible reward either on the trade. When that's true, but most people, most responsible traders are not holding out for the max possible win anyway. Most of us are taking profits at, you know, 50% of the credit received or 25%, whatever levels you're trying to have as a take profit. Most of us use that. So you're really never holding out for the max profit on a trade anyway. But if you hold to expiration, you are in many cases holding out for the max possible loss. So just don't hold to expiration. That is why we always get out of our trades early. Now, one last thing I do want to do, let me go over to my web browser. I did pull up the page in TASTYTRADE. I went to their help center and support to see if they talked about this weird situation where if you have a credit spread or iron condor and the underlying stock finishes exactly between the strikes on your spread, they do have a page on what happens to option spreads at expiration. And you can see the second one down is the spread is partially in the money. That means the stock finished between your short strike and your long strike. So the spread is partially in the money. That means one side of the spread is going to be exercised or assigned on expiration, but the other side isn't. Now, let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can read this. You can see spreads that are between the vertical strikes are subject to discretionary closure by our risk and margin team if your account does not have sufficient funds to hold the resulting position, whether long or short. So, every broker, they're going to have a risk management team, and they're monitoring people's trades, especially if it's a very risky trade that is very close to expiration. They're monitoring that stuff even if you aren't. So if they determine that, hey, you stand a very good chance of being assigned short shares of stock or long shares of stock, but you don't have the actual money to hold those things, they're just going to close your trade for you. They're not even going to let you get in a situation where you could face that possible assignment. And the reason is this statement right here. They say, this is one situation when a defined risk spread no longer becomes defined risk, since the long leg may expire worthless. So it starts out as a defined risk trade. You have the short option and the long option. But when the underlying stock finishes between the two, the long option goes away. It's worthless. And now you really just have the short option. And now that defined risk spread is really just a naked short option that has undefined risk. Some brokers may vary on how they handle this situation, at least for Tasty. They say that if your account has the funds, they're going to assign you. They're going to give you those long shares of stock or short shares of stock as long as you have the funds in your account. They're not going to close your position for you. You'll get assigned. You're also going to be charged the assignment fee that comes with that. And they go on to say that if you don't have the funds to hold the long shares of stock or short shares of stock, what they're going to do in the last hour of that trading day, they're going to go ahead and close you out of that position anyway. So whether you wanted to hold it to expiration or not, they're not going to let you. They're going to close you out. And that's exactly what Robinhood ended up doing. You can see they closed him out at 2:31 Central Time. So 29 minutes before market close, they already decided that, this position was a little too risky. Even if he had the money for assignment, Robinhood went ahead and closed him out anyway. But again, you really shouldn't be facing these kinds of situations as long as you're out of your option positions well before expiration. Now, if you want to learn more about options trading, and especially my favorite option strategy, which is the wheel strategy, check out my book, The Super Wheel Option Strategy, which is available on Amazon. You'll find a link to that book in the description below. Also, consider subscribing to the DT Options Discord channel. I hold a live voice chat there for the first hour of each trading day, and we have a really great little group. We get together, we discuss trades, potential trade ideas each and every day. We talk about what the market is doing. So please check out the DT Options Discord. You'll find a link to it also in the description below. Peace, guys.